If we could, if I could have your attention, we're going to go ahead and get started. I know some of you certainly have other things to do tonight, so we really appreciate you taking the time as well. And I'm going to apologize in advance because some of our team members were stuck in traffic, but we don't want to keep you waiting. So I say that if you see people coming up as we get started, you'll understand why. So I apologize. And I feel like I'm so far away, so I'm going to move up a little closer. My name is Greg Odell. I'm the president and CEO of Events DC. So we are the Convention and Sports Authority for Washington, D.C. So just as way as background, I think you all know this by a lot of the interaction already of what we do at RFK. But we run, own, and operate several facilities, one being the Convention Center, then also on the sports side, RFK, the Armory. We also obviously maintain and do some programming on the grounds, as I know many of you are familiar. But then also on the Convention Center side, we operate that building, and also Carnegie Library. So we like to say that we're a one-stop shop for a lot of event programming, from conventions, meetings, sports, and entertainment, and music. But we also have a focus in our mission to make sure we're serving our youth. So we also do some grants and some activities with the youth in the district. So I'm going to get to the overview in a little bit of why we're here, which I think you already know, but I think it's important, and I wanted you all to know that this is important not only to us as the staff, but it's important to our board as well. So this has been a high priority, and I wanted to introduce the chair of our board because he personally wanted to be here to let you know how important it was and to greet you. So at this time, if you would, please take some comments from our illustrious chair, Mr. Max Brown.
Say illustrious? Oh, thank you. How is everybody tonight? Everyone doing okay? Yes? Thanks for coming out on a Thursday night. My name is Max Brown, Chair of Events DC. It's nice to be in Ward 7. I was born in St. Luke's Hospital in Cleveland, so it's nice to be sort of back, although I've been in Washington for like 32 years. As Greg said, this is an important meeting for us because we get our input and our marching orders from the citizens, from the mayor, from the council, right? You are equal in that in our mind, in my mind. So we're not just here just to have pizza. We want to get your input because the future of RFK campus is important to the city. It's important to the neighborhood. We want to find a way to connect the neighborhood better to that parcel. We want to have activities there for the community. So that's why we're spending our time, spending resources to figure out how we can make that 180-acre campus something that we can all be proud of, right? I've got two small kids, not so small anymore, they're little teens, who could kick my butt. They used to not be able to do that, but now they can. And we all have kids, we've got cousins, we've got relatives who live here and want to play here and stay here. And things like this help the city provide these sorts of activities. So I'm particularly excited to be here tonight and to listen. I want to acknowledge Sam Rosen from council member Alyssa Silverman's office somewhere. Sam, thank you for coming, and thank you and council member Silverman for all that you do for the city. And with that, I'm going to turn it over to my friend and colleague, Greg Odell, who does a tremendous job for the city. So if we could give Greg a big round of applause for all that he does. Thank you.
Thank you, Max. So we're going to jump right into the slide presentation. The first slide really is about an agenda overview first. So I want to talk to you a little bit about what we're actually going to talk to you about. And I think at the onset, let me just say one thing. We want to do as minimal talking as possible. You know, what we actually are here for is to get input from you about what we want to do on that site. So we did some analysis. We started a year ago, and we'll talk about the work we've done, but we felt like we're at a stopping point now that we need to get feedback before we even present any concepts. So we want to make sure it's very important that we get input from you. So the agenda will talk about the site and market analysis that we've done to date. We'll also go through and tell you what the process is for concept development, and we don't have any concepts yet, so we're not getting ahead of you, but we want to tell you how we're going about that process. And then we want to open it up. And you'll see at your tables, we have pens and papers, and there's also easels behind you because what we want to do is spend some quality time, and we'll have some of our team members coming around the table to really get feedback from you. So we literally want to understand what is it that you want to see on this site and talk about some of those ideas, because we're going to go right back to our team, particularly to our design team, and try to incorporate some of those ideas that you're sharing with us. So you'll see there's a map that's kind of an existing location that has some of the site conditions, and I'll talk a little bit about that later, but that's what we'll have at your desk. So we want to make this a meaningful exercise to get feedback from you. And then we'll also have some additional Q&A if you have any additional questions. So this is the first of many discussions. So we wanted to get input first, as I said, and then we're going to come back to you as we evolve this concept and design process, okay? So the site market analysis. So you all probably know this. This is the ground is owned by the feds, and they lease it to us, as you can see. There is a very specific purpose for this lease. So it is either for stadium use or recreation use. So when we went out to set out on this task, or this study that we're doing, we want to make sure that we were still honoring the constraints of the lease. So again, very specific to stadium use or recreation use. Now, having said that, we recognize that when that lease was done many, many years ago, and you all can appreciate this, buildings when they were built in the past were usually built for a single purpose. Well, when we all go to experience something now, when we go to a stadium, there's all kinds of things going on, like retail, there's restaurants. So we want to make sure that we kind of can expand on what that definition is that there's some supporting uses that still might be recreation or stadium, but also we can do some other things that will have a wonderful experience, not only for the people who come there, but also for the residents, as you all are, that are going to enjoy this as part of the community, okay? The site is 190 acres, as Max mentioned. Now, 80 of them are in the floodplain. So if you look, and you'll see on the map, there's an area that's identified as a floodplain. It's in the light tan here. Now, what that means, and it's has a pretty big impact on the development. So the floodplain is where you have a considerable water table issue, and you have to be mindful of what kind of structures you can actually build there. Or you have to spend probably significant dollars or some type of infrastructure to make sure that anything you build there obviously doesn't impact and have a situation where you may even have some subterranean that's actually going into the water there, because there's a very high water table. So that is a constraint that we need to be mindful of, that anything we do on that project has to make sure that it's not being impactful to that floodplain. The next item, you all know this site better than me. Obviously, there's access issues or points to Heritage Island and Kingman Island, and we want to make sure we not only are mindful and preserve that, but we also enhance that and figure out how we can get better access to those points. The utilities, for those who may not know, there's significant utilities across the site. So that ranges from big sewer pipes to numerous infrastructure that's on there. So when we build this, we have to do one or two things: be mindful of it and build around it, or we have to relocate a lot of those utilities for any new structures that we want to put on that site. As you can imagine, the utilities are very old because they've been there for a long time, so we have to be mindful that there's probably a lot of utility work that has to get done. So I talked about, this is an overview, obviously, of all the things that really limit our development that we have to be mindful of. I talked already about utility, but another key point on here is existing road structure. So we need to make sure whatever we do, we either have to reconfigure the road structure for any new type of development, and I think we want to hear from you all that might be something that you want if we feel like there's traffic congestion now or problems on that site. So we want to make sure we hear from you that we can address that, or figure out at least how we make sure that people can get to and from the site. But also a key component of that is making sure that pedestrians and the community can get around that site as well and to and from. So that's very important in anything that we consider or develop on that site. So as a matter of process, after we did the site analysis, one of the things we wanted to do, and again, remembering that we had recreational use and stadium use as the things that the lease constraints that we're operating under, we wanted to exhaust our efforts and talk to every potential type of user we could think of. So we cast a wide net. We talked to probably over 30 different groups. So you can see Those range from local organizations that may be amateur sports. So you'll see Capitol River Youth Sports as an example. I think you all have probably heard that their proposal, they want to have lots of soccer fields. We talked to some of our local teams like DC United to see what other types of things there. We talked to groups that want to do bike polo, all types of different organizations, even the tennis facilities like the City Open or Washington Castles. We also talked to the universities. As you all can probably imagine, or you may have heard, there's certainly a lot of need from these universities to have recreational facilities. Georgetown's a good example that they're really closed in on their campus, so they wanted to see if there's opportunities at RFK where they actually could have a facility that they might be able to use. For us, that's a great thing, but we always want to be mindful that if we do something like that or consider that, that also there's benefits that the community can enjoy from using that facility as well. So again, this is an exercise to try to capture lots of different ideas, but not be obviously required or locked in on any of them, but just get feedback. Here's some of the other ones. As you look at some of the national or regional organizations, a lot of on the amateur side, I won't go through all of them, but you can see from USA Soccer to lacrosse, rugby, you name it, all of them. Track and field is a big one also that there's probably a demand to have a track and field facility in this region. There's a lot of certain market data that would suggest that. And then obviously we talked to a lot of the regulatory departments and agencies that we're going to need to work closely with as a community for all of us to realize some of these projects. Promoters, you all know, we certainly do lots of concerts. As our theme is to try to do not only sports but also entertainment, we wanted to get some perspective for them at what type of ideas they'd like for the site. I talked a little bit about market analysis. So we generally looked at what the demographics look like in not just in our immediate community, but also in a 5-hour radius. And why that's important is that generally for youth sports, and you all, I'm sure, have children, many of you, that's typically the range that you would drive to go to youth sports. So you would drive for a basketball tournament in about a 5-hour distance. Soccer, the same thing. So what we found when we did this study, that there's a lot of demand for people to come regionally to want to play sports in the nation's capital. So this would obviously be a great venue for us to consider that. We also saw that in doing that, though, there weren't a whole lot of facilities to support that. So again, thinking this might be an opportunity. And when I say this, remember, it's 190 acres. So this is an opportunity to do lots of different stuff, not just one use, but we can actually find lots of different ways to accommodate lots of use. Now, I would be remiss if I don't stop right dead in my tracks right now. You can't wave me off. I'm going to introduce your council member and who's been a champion, obviously, for all of us in the city, for all that she's done. I know she'd like to say a few words. So please honor her and let us hear from her, Councilmember Alexander.
Hello, Eric Moses and Greg Odell. Good evening. So I'm glad that we have a good turnout tonight for Ward 7. Even though I know that this is a meeting about RFK Stadium and it affects the entire city, it is in Ward 7. And that's what I want to be clear about. So first and foremost, for our advisory neighborhood commissioners, for our immediate neighborhood, I want to hear from Ward 7. I know that there is a feasibility study, and the council actually passed legislation to have a feasibility study done as well for the future use of RFK Stadium. How many of you remember RFK Stadium when the Redskins, and I see someone with the Redskins jacket on, how many of you, by show of hands, remember when they were here? And how many of you live in Kingman Park when they were here, by a show of hands? And was there a problem that you encountered while they were here? I just want to get some feedback, because I remember that I had family in Kingman Park as well, and I don't recall that there were any problems with that being there. So just to get kind of a feel, I want to hear from the residents to see what in fact you want at RFK Stadium, and I will do my best to represent Ward 7 to get what you want. I know what I want, but I'll keep that to myself because that's not a concern. I'm only one person, and there are like 75,000 people in Ward 7. But please give your feedback because we want to hear from you. We want to hear from you. So I'm glad this meeting is being conducted. I want us, no matter where these meetings are held across the city, to please let our voice be heard. Let your voices be heard because your voice counts. So this is in Ward 7. It is a convenient place for us to be. But from what I understand, they've had meetings all over the city, and we have not been as widely represented as I feel we should have been. So I will keep you abreast of the meetings. I'm sure Events DC will keep you abreast of the meetings, but please come out and let it be known that your voice counts, and this is in your backyard. So we truly want to hear from you. So thank you.
Thank you, Councilmember, for being here, and you have our commitment that we definitely will keep you and the community abreast of our meetings because we definitely want your feedback. So thank you for saying that. So we'll keep moving. Just last part of the conversation. So the concept development. So after we got data or got feedback from all the potential user groups that I was sharing with you, and after having done that market analysis, we wanted to start developing the concepts. So we started this process, but we realized that a couple elements were missing. One is that we thought we would probably come to you and share some concepts, but we felt like, you know what, we're better off getting input from you so that we could actually put more of those concepts and those ideas into those concepts. So that's why we're here. So we're gonna gather that, and again, we're gonna have those whiteboards, and our hope is that you fill up all those whiteboards behind you, and then we're also gonna post it on our website to make sure everybody knows what Ward 7 wants from this exercise. The second piece was, it's such a big site. So even if you put a stadium on this site, even if you put any other type of programming on this site, there really has to be a plan or a way that you connect all these activities so that people have a sense of place when they're on this site. So that was missing. So we've actually hired another part of our design team to focus on how do you bring all those elements together. So again, after talking to all those users and after the fact that we get your input, we're then going to come back to you and share the first pass. It won't be etched in stone, but it'll be our first pass to show you some different options. And again, they are not baked. We want your feedback. We'll come back to you, have another discussion about it, but that's what the process is. So we have no concepts yet because we want to get your feedback, but I just wanted you all to be aware of that's what we're going to do. So with that, I'm actually going to turn it over to Chinyeti Hubbard. She's our Vice President of Marketing and Communications. She's going to lead you through the exercise. For now, it's your turn to do the talking at your tables. We're going to get some feedback. Thank you.
Hello. Thank you. Good evening, everyone. Good evening, Councilmember Alexander. Great to have you here. So as Greg mentioned and Councilmember Alexander mentioned, it is now time to hear from you. We would love to get your feedback on what you would like to see at that site. We have heard everything from various meetings, from an amphitheater to green space to a farmer's market. So what we'd like to do, each table should have a group number, and we'd like for everybody to gather with that group number, gather together. You may need to adjust your seats slightly, and look at you have some questions on your table, and there's a laminated site plan and dry erase markers for you to use as a reference point during your conversations. So we've allocated about 30 minutes, but we can take more time, whatever time you need for this exercise. So we'd like for the tables with the same group number to gather together and discuss the 3 talking points that are on your table. And we will have a representative from Events DC at each table to answer any questions or help you through this exercise. And we'll give you about 30 minutes, and then we'll come back so we can hear from one representative from each group to stand up and give us their feedback of what you would like to see at the site. Time is up. Do you need any more time? I think we've got, it looks like all the boards are pretty full with a lot of great ideas. 30 more seconds. Do you all need more time? Are we good? Okay. You're good? Okay. All right. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, we are going to get started so we can hear from you. There are a lot of great ideas on these boards. Do you need more time? Anybody need more time? Everyone good? We're good? Okay. All right. Let's get started. Will, are we good over here? Okay. Are we good over here? Okay. What group is this? Your group 2? Oh. Okay. Why don't we start right here? Okay, everyone. May I have your attention? Okay. So we are now going to hear from you. And just to respect everyone's time, let's try to keep it to about 5 minutes and just go through the ideas that you all came up with. We'll start with group 2 right here. Who's our representative?
Good evening, Ward 7 family. I'm going to go a little slow. I'm still struggling from turkey withdrawal. So we talked about first multi-use sports facility. That would include track and field, gymnasium, soccer, football, etc., but just definitely something multi-use. We discussed vending as an example of what that multi-use facility could do as far as economic engagement, but more importantly, how to engage young people in community on how to take economic opportunity as a result of this taxpayer investment. Since we're going to have a sports facility, why not teach young people how to use the business of sport to sustain their own lives in their own community? Good infrastructure. Right now, for instance, our Riverwalk trails span around the city, but they don't connect to any of our Nanny Helen boroughs, Benning Roads, East Capitol Street, Minnesota Avenue. Pennsylvania Avenue is the only real access point to the river. So we have to immediately address infrastructure to allow us now to take advantage of a public asset in our community so we can take our bike on the Riverwalk Trail coming out of Fort DuPont Park, coming out of Marvin Gaye Park, and just hop right onto the river and go down to this location. So without infrastructure, our participation will be extremely limited. Highest sustainability standard. We were going to say LEED standards, but depending on the environment, their terminology is kind of, whatever. But so we want the highest, so green roofs, rain gardens, solar panels. We're the nation's capital, so we should be thinking really big and be a model. International local small business hub. So if we're going to have the Leoneses and this Redskins at the stadium, whatever, these guys have the money to invest in the small business. So instead of us going out searching in Las Vegas for small businesses, why not work with the local teams that are here to partner with our local small businesses that do stuff like these young ladies run track. They have shoes. They can develop their own T-shirts. Imagine if one of these teams invested into one of these small high school kids who was coming up with their own shirt and start wearing little JoJo shirts. I don't know. Little Bing Bing shirts. I bet you'd be off the corner though. And this sports facility could do that. So while he's in college, he's learning the business of sports while playing sports. And that changes the mindsets of our young people. Then we talked about recreational river access, canoes. We're about to have the 11th Street Bridge, the soccer stadium, and waterfront. What do we have in Ward 7? This is an opportunity for us to use this facility to really pump up canoeing and environmental education, that whole 9 yards. So we talked about the Riverwalk Trail connecting both sides of the river to really bring people down to the river where they can have these vibrant conversations and interact. Environmental Education Center, which is, I think, slated to be built on Kingman Heritage and Island, really pumped that up. Then we talked about maintaining some parking decks for our seniors, and also a lot of people in Ward 7 drive, so we definitely want to be able to bring people across a highway, across a river, over into the stadium. I'm smiling because parking seems like the opposite kind of conversation I have these days. And then we put Redskins Stadium, and that specifically means if you're a Dallas Cowboys Stadium, I believe there's an 8:30 meeting on Monday that someone, we're going to tell you where to look. We could discuss that at that 8:30 meeting on Monday if you want a Dallas Cowboys Stadium. And improve pedestrian access. I think that's it, and yeah.
All right, thank you very much. Okay, group 1.
Thank you, ma'am. Okay, so we had a very similar conversation, like very similar, and it's probably going to be a similar theme. Connectivity was a big part of it. Multi-use, transformative kind of spaces, arts, gymnastics, pools. We're okay with some sort of stadium, but a 100,000-seat stadium seems like a really bad use of all that space. Maybe smaller tennis, maybe make it cool looking so you could use it as like an amphitheater, sort of outdoor art space. The Arc was mentioned. Multi-use sports, a big push is for field space. We don't have enough field space, and there's not enough connectivity across the city for kids who want to play, and it's too expensive. If you do build a stadium, maybe you take some of that money that they build the stadium and have to have support for the kids in the community. So you sponsor football, you sponsor soccer, sponsor whatever the kids need. More connectivity via foot traffic. We realized that it's not connected to the ward very well. Maybe a footbridge from Kingman Island into Ashton Heights, something like that, that could bring people. You can just walk right in and go see whatever the theater is, go see the Nutcracker, go see whatever it is. Businesses, whatever we develop, it has to support the community, it has to support jobs, it has to support some place to kind of hang out and congregate, and maybe a little place to eat, something like that, if we can swing that. A cool waterfront, canoes and kayaks and stuff like that, support of our local colleges, through like crew and things like that, community benefits. It's about it. Very similar to that, to the same kind of stuff, connectivity, and it's got to support the community. It can't just be something for a football stadium. All right? When do you guys want it? Who's that?
Let's hear from
My name is Ashley. Oh. It says indoor recreation center for youth. And then it's examples like Chuck E. Cheese, laser tagging, paintballing, and stuff for birthday parties. And a conference center, hotel, and an employee daycare center in a hotel, and a welcome center. And then it says rebuild RFK, and then theme park, a 5-star hotel, outdoor amphitheater, indoor concert venue, retail center with quality, university classrooms, academics, pedestrians bike access from RFK Stadium site, sports center, I came up with that idea because I swim and stuff, but when we have our swim meets, we have to go all the way to the Sports and Learning Center in Maryland. We don't have one in D.C. Then, coordinated program with social service on south side of site. Something unique that would be a regional drawer subway station. Well, it's a station next to it, but subway station. That's it.
You did. Good job. Good. Okay, great. Thank you. All right. Next group, group 4. Who's our representative? Yes.
Good evening, everyone. I was the moderator/writer, so I guess I'm the spokesperson too. Our group kind of we went all over the place. So I tried to write it. They were talking, so if I'm going to let them chime in if I'm doing this incorrectly per their suggestions. But to answer the first question, they said hospital would be something they like to see. They're concerned about the trolley line now going to what seemed like to be nothing at the end of the line, so they're interested in seeing something that's used by the residents at the end of the trolley line in its current space anyway. Green space was probably the hugest sentiment of our group, preferably real stuff, no turf. Amphitheater, kind of a Carter Barone-ish kind of thing. Kennedy Center Jr., what I labeled it, just something smaller in that capacity for the arts, thinking about our youth. Yeah, Kennedy Center Jr. Multi-use space, so commercial and green space, kind of piggybacking off some of the other groups saying the same things about small businesses and having that commercial space along with the green space. And green space was really big for those on the Kingman Park resident side, saying they don't want to look at pavement. They'd rather see some beautification there and then maybe put the parking lot behind something, whatever that something becomes. But that when they first look at their residence, it's not necessarily a parking lot. And then rugby, somewhere for the youth rugby team that one of our residents talked about, there's no space for them to do their thing. So that's one. And then they were concerned about EPA cleanup on site, the health of the residents and the community, what that looks like. Traffic, as we all talk about in DC, that has to be part of the conversation, right? Where bus traffic goes, how it's filtered. They talked about the paved parking concerns again, keeping money here in the city as opposed to getting outside businesses coming in, doing a small business once again here in the city, and making a safe space for youth to do recreational activities. So that's pretty much us.
Thank you. Okay. This group. Hello.
Hi, how are you? Good evening, everybody. Get my plug in right quick. Welcome to St. Luke's. This is my church. I love my church, and this is St. Luke's right here. So we came up with, we started out talking about accessibility. I think someone else, I'm going to piggyback on the fact of a bike trail and foot traffic. As you come over the river, east of the river I call it, a lot of these things are not really here. They're not really accessible. So we want to try to have everything up here is going to be involved with community participation, okay? So we thinking about over here, and whatever comes, let's not forget the people that's mostly affected. We say Ward 7, we got some things up here, but we don't want to have, build something that nobody around here can use. With all fairness, I have yet to see anybody in my neighborhood play rugby. I live across the street. How is that going to help somebody in Lincoln Heights? Kenilworth, yeah, they can learn, but it's not happening over here. I'm sorry. So, with that being said, we've got a tennis court. We want to have a mixed-use recreation center. The young lady says she has to go to Maryland to swim for her team. Why can't she have a home base for her team? But she says she has to go to Maryland. So, yeah, well, that's you might have to talk to somebody in the upper level there. And I understand that, but I didn't knock your thing. Let me get my thing out. Yes, you are. And I'm, all right. So we want a multi-use center where everyone can use it with swimming, tennis, and aerobics. We also like to have a mixed-use center that's retail shopping with a sports theme, with restaurants and a farmer's market. Once again, we want community to be part of that. We want long-term job opportunities for small businesses, that whatever comes in here. Educational hub would consist of computer labs, music labs, and many vocational institute. Now that's something that everyone would benefit from. It would get a great grooming ground for our young minds to develop and be exposed to different things that they may not have the opportunity right now. We came up with a bowling alley, a movie theater, and a satellite UDC campus right here over here in Ward 7. We would have an athletic department, intramural fields, and a multi-purpose sports complex. So that, right. Well, I'm just telling the truth. I grew up.
Give him a round of applause. Thank you for that.
very much.
Appreciate all the input. Thank you very much.
Yeah. So we have a couple more tables to go, and then we are going to have a Q&A portion for tonight. All right, you're next. Okay, great.
Good evening, everyone. I'm the only one who can read my handwriting, so I was chosen to speak. Our conversation also revolved around some of the amenities and green space that would be involved with the new site, or the redeveloped site, I should say. Specifically, actually, our biggest idea was a sports complex, taking sports fields, specifically a soccer field, volleyball was mentioned, and also combining that with tennis and and making those DCPS accessible fields as well. But some of our ideas included, a brand new stadium, a library on the site, the new FBI building. Like I said, a sports complex with sports fields and et cetera. A farmer's market. I'm just going to go down and then go up. The farmer's market, a flea market, a possible expansion of the flea market opportunities that are already there. There was a request to get rid of the parking lot. More green space and trees. Maintaining a vibrant safety patrol would be important for the success of the area. An entertainment center with a variety of amenities, sort of close to what's near Nats Park. An amphitheater was mentioned. This is one that's on the mainland and metro accessible. A historical site, really honoring the roots of RFK and what it means for the history of the district. Nearby, placing a metro stop closer to the site with green space around the site. River access was voted on twice with boats and canoes, et cetera. Connecting Kingman Island to Anacostia Avenue, making it more accessible around there. Expanding the walking path, perhaps creating some sort of cross-country or 5K trail. And one of the other big ideas that was mentioned was creating an environmental learning center for nearby schools that DCPS would run. So, and then another big point of discussion was around the outreach for the engagement effort overall. And just as this project continues to evolve, doing more door-to-door and grassroots outreach to especially buildings with senior citizens, et cetera. So, yeah, that was group 6. Yeah. Thank you.
And just a quick reminder, if you have a question, please write it on the index card that is on your table. All right, our last group, last but not least.
Thank you. Basically, we have pretty much the same thing as ideas as everyone else, but definitely we need a hospital, because if someone gets shot here, they have to travel all over to get to the hospital, and it's just unfortunate some of them make it and some of them don't. Just like when we had DC General, when the incident happened, we were able to shoot them right over to DC General, and they were been able to been taken care of. But as it stands, we need a hospital right here in Ward 7. It's just unfortunate, but we need one, or some type of urgent care until they can move to another location. But we have to travel way too far to go to a hospital. And I mean, we have Providence in Northeast, and we have GW, Georgetown up in Northwest. We have Greater Southeast, and the other far part of Southeast. But we have nothing here. And of course, I know I was born at DC General. A lot of people was born, it was called Gallagher and everything. So we really do need a hospital here. And hopefully, y'all will really take that into consideration. Also, we need a fine arts center. There are so many children that I see standing in the Benco Shopping Center that has so much talent, but they have nowhere to utilize it. Now, we do have the Boys and Girls Club, we do have Deanwood, but we need a fine arts center where there are instructors who masters in fine art and whatever their fine art is, so that we can pull the talent out of our youth now, so that they can be our future. We have engineers that we probably will never know, but how would we know that when they stand in the Benco Shopping Center? I see them every day when I get off from work. And so we won't lose our youth. We have to engage their minds, because they can do this real quick and swipe here and play the football game. So if they are that intelligent to do that, I can only imagine what they can really do if they have a facility set for them. When I was growing up, we had a lot of training schools. We had Martha Washington, where all the nurses and doctors came out of, particularly nurses. We have Bell, where all the barbers, everybody came out from there. Those are they are distinct. They're no longer existing. Well, even Phelps, Chamberlain, all of those schools where we had many people who I grew up with went to those schools, and they have soared and have businesses and still are nurses and still are so on and so forth. Those are the type of things that we should be able to use that facility for a training center. It worked in the 70s, and I'm sure it'll work in 2015. Also, well, the Market 14 was this gentleman, we Okay, yeah, and again, the Fine Arts Center, that kind of covers everybody. Well, we do need a Fine Arts Center because we have so many people who can sing, dance, good in poetry, can do art, can do everything. But if we don't have that for them to do in Ward 7, and I mean, it's open for everybody to use, but particularly in Ward 7 because then they don't have transportation. So a lot of us can just walk to the stadium if we had to get there. To do whatever it is we need to do. And definitely we need something for the seniors. I have like 2 neighbors who are 100 years old. They're still vibrant, they're still moving around, they're doing what they're doing, but they stay in the house because I guess it's just something that they want to do, but if there was some avenues for them to come out, to be picked up and go to a facility somewhere on the stadium ground where it specifies for the seniors and they can help whatever they're experiencing doing, they can kind of filter in and help the younger people, the older people, the middle-aged people, because they are 100 years old and they're still here, and I'm really grateful for that. Also, we need something for the disability, the mentally challenged. We have to have something for them too, because as you see, I can see them walking up and down Benning Road, you know, not mindset right, but if there is, and they also have talents too, hidden talents that we have no idea what it is, but if we had a place for them to go, and people who actually work in that field, then their mentally challenged becomes not even a mental challenge. You know, we're all in this together, so that's pretty much what we came up with.
So I know Chinyeti, oh, sorry, I talked too loud into the mic. I know Chinyeti is going to give all of us some instructions about the Q&A next, but I was remiss and I didn't do it at the onset. I wanted to introduce this gentleman to my right. Most of you, a lot of you, I should say, know him already. So I talked about the Events DC family and the components we do from conventions and meetings and sports and entertainment. And sports and entertainment not only is about the facilities that we manage, but also about the programming. So Eric Moses is our Senior Vice President and Managing Director, and he's responsible for all the sports and entertainment programming and managing those facilities. So please give him a round of applause. And he's obviously not only instrumental in this process about going forward, but also for managing our existing events today. So I just wanted you all to know he was here.
He's also a Cowboys fan.
That's actually true.
Okay.
So on that note, we will pass it back to Chinyeti.
Yeah, who is a Redskins fan. But
Chinyeti's a Redskins fan.
But okay, now we will begin our Q&A, and we ask that hopefully everyone has written their question on an index card, and you will be asked to stand up and speak into the mic and address your question to these gentlemen up front. And when you are done, pass the index card to one of our Events DC staff members who are in the back who can raise their hand. They will collect those index cards. All of this information, questions, answers, all of your feedback will be posted on our website, on the community section of our website.
And the reason why we ask you to write it down is we recognize, you know, we don't want to keep everybody here all night. So if we don't get to all the questions, we want to make sure we capture all of them. So we hate to ask, but if you write them down, we promise we'll respond to all of them. Okay? Thank you.
Okay. All right. So I started on that side last time. Why don't I start here? Any questions here? Okay. Here? Questions? Not yet? Okay. Oh, here we go, right here in front of me. All right. Here you are.
My question is, what has been put in place as far as having community integration in some of the process, like when you build something over there and it's affecting those in the community? Will they have input? Just like it's nothing more disheartening than to see an apartment building come up on Benning Road, and I live in that neighborhood, but yet I can't get hired, and yet the building that you put up, the apartments are so high that I can't even live in it. So whatever comes, will there be community integration to be part of that? Those are people that's going to be greatly affected. Those in the community, the long-standing citizens. What will be put in place, and will we have an input in the finality in the process?
That's a great question. So your input is going to come in many, many forms from our perspective. You have commitment of all our leadership, including our board, not only the whole board, but you'll hear directly from our chair. So right now, just as we talk about ideas and concept, that is why we're here, to make sure we get your input. But to your point, when we all finally settle on what we're going to build, then we don't want to ignore the community. We want to make sure we get input on how it's going to get implemented, but then more important, what's the benefit to the community, whether there's jobs and then all the activities and programs. So I will tell you, we at least have a good track record at Events DC. When we built the convention center, when we built the hotel, and when we built the baseball stadium, we made sure that we had district residents working and we had CBA firms that actually were working on that job. And then as a result, we also had community benefits as well. We're going through that process right now. I should have mentioned, many of you may know this, we're going to be building the practice facility for the Wizards and a new entertainment arena in Ward 8 and the St. Elizabeth's campus. So important part of that process is exactly what you just asked about, to make sure we get input, and then we have a jobs training program, or we have other amenities that the community wants. So we want to know what that is and not just assume it, but then also implement it once we get your feedback. So you have our commitment, we will do that. I'm sorry? So, right, but right.
What is the checkpoint? What is checks and balances as far as I'm concerned? Once again, I hear what you said, but I've seen firsthand.
Right. So
this is what I do. I've seen firsthand what happened on Benning Road.
Right. So we're going to have community meetings, regular community meetings. You make sure you hold us accountable that when the time is right, we'll make sure we implement that. So that's how you know, and we're not going anywhere. So your point is valid, and we'll make sure when you ask, and mindful, you have to give us time, because right now we're just developing the concepts. But when we start implementing, you hold us accountable and make sure we do it.
Okay, ma'am.
I'm looking at this map that you have given us, and there's a key here. For example, the gray is the study area within the FEMA 100-year flood plain. And I think this is going to be key to whatever goes there. And I don't know whether any of us looked at this, but I'm sitting here looking at your map. Now, my question also is, how much money is earmarked for the project? And what is the project timetable?
Good question. So to your first point, we talked a little bit about the floodplain in the initial site analysis that we did. And you're absolutely right. It is a constraint that we're going to have to deal with. Either we can't build certain structures on top of it, or we're going to have to do serious mitigation to support any structures that get built there. As it relates to your question about funding, no dollars have been earmarked right now. We are only in the conceptual stage. So as a process, both the community, the mayor, and the council will all come together and decide what this project's going to be. But as part of that process, we also have to make sure that whatever we decide is financially feasible. So that's also part of the process, that we're going to have to make sure that we can build stuff that not only we can find the money to build it, but then after it's built, that somehow it can be sustained and paid for. So you're absolutely on point. We have to figure that out, but we're in the very early stages right now.
Thank you. And tell us your name.
Hi, I'm Eden Giorgio, 500 Block Oklahoma Avenue. If there's a sports field, who's going to run it? Let's say if we want to do a pickup soccer, volleyball, whatever it is, is it DPR or?
Right. So it hasn't been decided yet. So for us right now, obviously, under the existing conditions, we would manage it. But to your point, we would make sure that when we have any type of community field, that we make sure that somebody who operates it will make sure that it has accessibility to the community. So if people want to use it, we'll have a process for how they sign up to do that. So recognize we're premature right now because we haven't figured out what we're going to do, but we absolutely have to solve for something like that when we decide if we have that type of use.
Any more questions here?
Again, my name is Alvin Green, and I live in Kingman Park. My question is, the city held a hearing just recently about the building of 300 units in the 1600 block of Benning Road where Trinidad Church is now located. They proposed to have 50 parking spaces in this condominium unit that they're proposing to build. When the question was asked of the chairman of the city council, what are you going to do about the people that you displace? His answer was one of those little snotty remarks that we expect from him. We'll pay them off and they can go anywhere they damn please. I'm kind of concerned about this kind of attitude that comes out of the city council where you can build stadiums where you damn please. And in addition to building stadiums, you can't even inspect buildings that you propose to put homeless people in. Who the hell is running this city?
So I can't speak and I won't speak on behalf of the district. I appreciate your comments, but all I'll commit to you is as it relates to this parcel, we're going to do everything we can to get feedback and respond to that feedback and be inclusive.
Hello, my name is Brian Mihalik. I just got a couple quick questions. One, what's on the table? Is everything mentioned here on the table, or do you guys have a short list of the types of projects that you are considering?
So right now, nothing's baked. So obviously, you all have heard everyone talks about the notion of a stadium. So when we develop some major options, certainly a stadium will be one option, but it won't be the only option. But all of what I will tell you for all the community meetings that we've had, not only did we hear many of the great comments and ideas you already had, but you all actually gave us even more. So I will say everything's on the table that we heard today.
All right, just one comment. You said something earlier about fields or whatever. If you could do something with fields, I would hope that the first priority would be to kids in the district, not people coming outside to rent fields.
Okay, thank you for the comment.
Any questions here? Questions? Questions?
Quick question having to do with money. Market value of the land, not based on DC speculative value, but if I was to buy, what is the square footage value if I was to buy this land as a consumer? I mean, real cost. And then also, what is the cost for the cleanup? Have you guys gotten any numbers? I know there's some major environmental concerns. If you could kind of talk to us about what those numbers look like.
Fair question, but we haven't done any type of valuation of the property yet, and we haven't done any assessment of what the environmental conditions will be. The process that we want to do is go through some concepts, and once we settle on the concepts, then figure out what that cost would be. But then, to your point, what's also the cost for remediation? And we've heard certainly that there are potentially some issues there. But we're going to have to do soil borings, a lot of soil borings, and a lot of internal or environmental research to make sure we find out what has to be done. So, sure.
So with the majority of the contamination on the river, are we as taxpayers expected to pick up that bill, or as the Superfund site, which it is, EPA funded? I don't know if the EPA has funded it or not. My question is the federal government and the district government going to work with various agencies to foot that bill, or will that end up coming out of taxpayer pockets?
Right.
Have you guys had those level of conversations?
We have not had those levels of conversation, but we will exhaust that, I will assure you, to find out if we can get federal resources for it.
Good evening. My name is Aji Joseph, and I'm here today on behalf of DC Speed. We have a team here that goes all the way to Maryland to practice, and one of our ideas was having something like the PG Sports and Learning Complex, like the young lady mentioned. My son swims, and we have to go all the way to Maryland, Virginia, when they have swimming competitions, because we don't have any of the DPR facility, with the exception of the Tacoma Park, recreation center that people can compete. So definitely the sports complex idea is recommended, but I wanted you to give me kind of like a rundown of a timeline. What timeline are we looking at? I know you're gonna come back to us in January, but what is the process? You're going to finalize this from this time to this time. We're looking at putting something together in 2017 or something like that.
Right. No, that's a fair question. I apologize because I think somebody else asked me about timeline, and I realized I didn't address it. So we look at the project, and this is definitely not a sprint. This is going to be a marathon in some sorts, because lots of different things are going to happen in terms of process of making a decision. But also, when you think about RFK, there's actually lots of things in the short term and then medium term and long term that are going to happen. So as an example, DC United, as you all have heard, is going to get a new stadium. But in the short term, until that stadium is done, they're going to continue to play there. And we're going to continue to do our programming there as we've done before and try to maximize that site. After such time that the stadium is done, and even when we figure out what the long-term solution is, we have a great opportunity to do something in the short term that will engage a community that you all can benefit from. So part of our strategy in this exercise that we're doing with you is to figure out in the short term, that could be 3 to 5 years, 3 to 6 years, that we'd actually start to work and try to implement some of those concepts. And then we recognize the long term may take some time to actually find the financing, to actually build and get a plan together. So that could take 10 years or even longer. But our plan is to keep the site active and do the programming, and we want to get even input on that in existing conditions. And then once DC United's gone, we want to quickly start to implement some short-term ideas. And then we'll come with a long-term strategy. But we want your feedback on all those three parts: short, medium, and long-term.
I just want to quickly say thank you for all the good ideas. As Greg said earlier, this is our third meeting. Some of the best ideas, engagement that we've had, so I really appreciate it on behalf of the board. I also want to thank Councilmember Alexander for coming out tonight and for showing her support for this process. So thank you, Councilmember. We appreciate all that you do for the ward.
Any other questions?
Hi, I'm Rochelle Gray from Eastland Gardens, and I had a question. You said in your other meetings they proposed some of the same things, but what was something different that they proposed?
You're going to test me from memory here. So we do. So the easy answer is we posted everything on our website. So at eventsdc.com, you can see from each meeting, and we'll do the same for tonight. We'll post we'll actually capture everything that everybody said, and we'll post all that. So if you'll allow me to direct you to that, then I don't have to try to remember off the top of my head all the ideas. But we'll make sure that we redirect and post it so you'll have it. Okay?
And at eventsdc.com, if you navigate to the community page, that's where all this information is being captured.
Any other questions? Remember, we capture it. If you have time, make sure you write it down. And just to your point about not only posting ideas, we actually will capture all the questions that you have, and we'll write written responses, and we'll post that too. And we did that from the other meetings, so you can see some of the other questions that were asked as well. Okay? So with that, we really appreciate everybody coming out tonight. This is the first of many conversations. So again, I personally want to thank Councilmember Vet Alexander as well. I want to thank the Events DC team and some of our consultants that are here that also spent time tonight. But thank you all for coming out. Happy holidays. Have a safe holidays, and you'll definitely hear from us immediately after the new year. Thank you.